Regulatory evolution of AISP and PISP, new regulations and their impact on the financial sector. In the dynamic world of digital financial services, account information service providers, or AISPs, and payment initiation service providers, known as PISPs, have emerged as key players. Recently, a series of new European regulations have refined the regulatory framework governing these entities. Let's analyze how these changes affect the landscape of digital financial services. First, implementing Regulation EU 2017-1100 seconds. This regulation lays down technical standards for the authorization of account information service providers, including AISPs and PISPs. The key changes include 1. Standardization of forms. Standardized application forms and templates are introduced, simplifying and streamlining the process for new providers. 2. Notification procedures. Clear procedures are established for notifications related to changes in the information provided during the authorization process. 3. Increased transparency. National regulators will have a clearer and more uniform view of the providers operating in the market. Second, Delegated Regulation EU 2017-577. Although this regulation focuses primarily on financial instrument markets, it has indirect implications for AISPs and PISPs. 1. Volume limitation mechanism. This could indirectly affect PISPs by influencing how certain financial transactions are processed and reported. 2. Transparency requirements. AISPs could be affected by the new information requirements, especially if they provide aggregated data that includes information on financial instruments. Third, Delegated Regulation, DEU, 2017-571. This regulation is particularly relevant for AISPs and PISPs as it establishes 1. Authorization requirements. The specific criteria that data service providers must meet to obtain and maintain their authorization are detailed. 2. Organizational requirements. Clear rules are established regarding the organizational structure, governance systems, and internal controls that these providers must implement. 3. Publication of operations. The requirements for the publication of information on operations are defined, increasing transparency in the market. 4th, Delegated Regulation, EU 2017-565. This regulation complements the MiFID II directive, and although it focuses on investment firms, it has implications for AISPs and PISPs. 1. More precise definitions. Key terms are clarified, which may affect how certain services offered by AISPs and PISPs are classified and regulated. 2. Organizational requirements. More detailed rules are established on internal organization and operating procedures, which could serve as a benchmark for best practices in the AISP and PISP sector. 3. Investor protection. Although it focuses on investment services, the principles of client protection could influence the practices of AISPs and PISPs in relation to data management and transaction security. 5th, Delegated Regulation, EU 2017-590. Communication of operations. This regulation lays down technical standards for the communication of transactions to competent authorities. For AISPs and PISPs, this implies 1. Greater transparency. They must report in detail the transactions they initiate or on which they provide information. 2. Data standardization. Specific formats are established for transaction reporting, requiring adaptations in AISP and PISP systems. 3. Customer identification. The mandatory use of unique identifiers for clients is introduced, which affects how AISPs and PISPs collect and manage user data. 6th, Delegated Regulation, EU 2017-585. Financial instrument reference data. This regulation mainly affects how reference data for financial instruments is handled. For AISPs and PISPs, the implications include 1. Expanding the scope of information. AISPs will have to provide more detailed information on the financial instruments associated with the accounts they manage. 2. Improved interoperability. Standards are set for the exchange of information between financial institutions, AISPs, and competent authorities. 7th, Delegated Regulation, EU 2017-580. Preservation of order data. This regulation lays down rules for the retention of data relating to orders relating to financial instruments. For AISPs and PISPs, this means 1. Storage requirements. They must implement robust systems to store detailed data of payment orders initiated or account information consulted. 2. Improved traceability. It is required to keep a detailed record of all operations, which increases the capacity for audit and supervision. 8th, Delegated Regulation, EU 2017-574. Accuracy of business clocks. This regulation lays down rules on the accuracy of clocks used in financial transactions. For AISPs and PISPs, the implications are 1. Time synchronization. They must ensure that their systems are synchronized with extreme precision, which may require investments in technological infrastructure. 2. Accurate transaction log. All transactions must be recorded with highly accurate timestamps, which affects how transactions are recorded and reported. At ILP, we are experts in advising companies and startups, especially in financial regulation. Our goal is to support your success and growth. Get in touch with our AI Savvy and Atenea to focus your inquiries or contact us directly. More information at ilpavogados.com and ilpstartup.com.